Things are happening? Maybe. I think so. Let's go. Do I have video? Oh, maybe. Maybe not. Who knows? We shall see. Yes, I do have video. And audio has been boosted. Hopefully it shall now not be as quiet as before. We are going to have great fun over here working with, rather, our lovely dwarves. It's going to be a bit low FPS. My PC is not having the greatest of time streaming and rendering a 3D object at the same time, but it's going better than I expected. Wow, 20 people. This is impressive, truly. More than I've ever streamed for. We are going to have great fun as well making a low poly. So this is our incredible high detail mesh. This is going to be an armor asset for our lovely new dwarven faction. Just want to make sure the glove doesn't clip through the arm, which it currently does, which it shouldn't. So off it goes. It didn't. Should be better, and I don't have. Go away, arm. Stop clipping. Right. That is our glove fixed, mostly at least. That should be good. And yes, it has very funky colors, I know. It is truly beautiful. The most beautiful. Boop, boop. So this is the high poly. As you can see, it has blistering 16.6 million triangles in it. Which is a whole lot, and your graphics card and your PC in general won't really enjoy rendering all this if we imported it into the game. I'm actually rather sure Attila wouldn't even launch. Although I've actually never tried. Maybe I should one day. So right now we're doing a low poly. Low poly is just, hold up. This is the actual model in game. As you can see, it only has about 1,500 triangles, which is way more reasonable for an in-game model. Don't worry about the fact it only has one sleeve, because it actually doesn't. It has two arms. Same goes for the hands. And let's see, I had to fix some things with the low poly last I tried. Yes, exactly. The issue I was having was that the arms were way too low resolution, so it looked really bad when you looked up close. So I need to make sure they are a bit more rounder, and like these edges look funky as well. Um, I truly have the most powerful PC of them all. Not really, but it's good enough. It does what it should. Not a whole lot more. I should add. Right. This I don't need. This I don't need. This I do need. Oh, yep. Beautiful. And why is this not working? Oh, and subdivide. Lovely stuff. I'm actually using a mouse right now. It was a long time ago I used a trackpad, which is true though. I did run a trackpad for about the first year of 3D. Then I realized that it made my wrist hurt like crazy and wasn't terribly complicated. Or wasn't terribly comfortable, I should say. It was complicated, it was not. I shall try to get some background music up as well, if I can figure that out, with my grand total of 5 minutes of using OBS Studio. But it's surely not so difficult, he said cluelessly. That is rather awful looking. Gotta fix that. And this. There's always things to fix. In fact, 3D is about 50% fixing your past mistakes. You'd hope you'd learn from your mistakes at some point. And you surely do. But it's still a lot of fixing mistakes, which isn't terribly fun. And yes, oh, yeah. That should be a bit less bad now. Hopefully that I made it a bit smoother. Although this is bad. This shouldn't stick out so much. it makes the textures look really weird, especially like in this area, which I do not want. I wanted this thing to look good, or as good as it can look, in our beloved Attila. Good lord. Ah yes, this is what a high poly looks like in edit mode. You can see here, every single point is a vertex. And 3 vertices, of course, make a triangle. Logical enough. That's a whole lot more. I think this entire lever wristband here has, or not wristband, but strap has more triangles than the entire actual in-game model. Now the lag. Oh, I appear to have caused a minor mess. No, let us not do that. We are better than so. And I realized I want that option. Yes. Now it's remotely doing what I wanted to. Hell yeah. Right, let's see if you can find some background music. Because that might be cool. From our playlist. Let's see. If I maybe there should be background music? I don't know. You'll have to tell me how loud it should be, because it is pretty hard to judge from here. Let me boost it. Obnoxiously loud? It should be there, maybe. Now I'm seeing this. Maybe? Ay, ay, ay. It's truly chaotic. And Thrones, well, about your question, Thrones runs a bit better, but I can actually give a first-hand account on if it does run better or not, because Attila, in its infinite wisdom of being a 32-bit software, does in fact not run on macOS. So I can't actually play the mod, which is a bit sad, but it is what it is. Guess I get to make cool models anyway. Truly bad. Does this look awful? Yes. Cool. Great. The lag is crazy, but it's okay. Oh god. Not good. Oop. Wait. Neutral. Okay. Yes, way better, way better. Now we're cooking. Yep, nice, 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 nice. I'm making it stick out a little, the strap, because there's supposed to be a buckle on both straps here. A buckle which I haven't placed there, but it's here, in the middle, for some reason. No one knows why, but it's fine. It's fine. Right, back to our original task. Go, go, go. Actually, right. Right. So it is, of course, highly important that the in-game model, this low-res thing we're making, actually lines up with the high poly model, because we're going to use an awesome piece of software known as Adobe Substance Painter later on, which is where we texture. Then we can kind of transfer the details from the... Why is this really not working out? From the high poly to the significantly less polygon dense low poly. And it will look practically identical from total war distances. And run a whole lot better, of course. We are doing our part for the performance. Not that there's a whole lot to be done about the performance, but we can at least try to not make it worse than vanilla. Which I do think is a noble cause. Oop. Oop. Yes, yes. Right. And now, because I added this hump here in the, or the fold in the strap, I also need to represent it in low poly. Yay! So that's great fun. And yes, that's okay. Just need to... Not quite. I do hope to finish this so-called low poly today, so I can get onto texturing, which is the visually more interesting part, and also rather fun. Until you again discover some random issue you didn't think of, and then you have to backtrack. But such is the life of a 3D artist. Rightio. That's good. That's good enough. That's not good. You see how the low poly here doesn't really match the high poly? That is no good. We do not want that. So let's fix it. First, I just want to hide everything I don't need though. So let's just add a bit more geometry. See, I'm like forming a curve now. Way better. Soga, it's called Substance Painter. Substance Painter by all our favorite company, Adobe. We all love Adobe. Truly a great company. Right. Is there any weird looking area? Yes, this thing. And again here, you can see that this is it's really weird and not very round. That's wrong. We need to fix. Better, better. Not quite good yet, though. And chainmail, it's pretty annoying to well, retopologize, so make the low poly off, because I'm using face snapping here. So if I grab this part, it like snaps itself to the high poly. This is usually great and works absolutely amazing, but because you can see here, mail is very not even. So you could now end up with a point in here, and then it's very low down compared to the rings. Which it shouldn't, because it should match the shape of the high poly best it can. Of course, you can't really. You can have some sticking out, that's no big deal. But still, not optimal. Good, this one is weird. Let's do that. I hope it is now good enough, although it still looks. Right, so those two like bumps are in, and it is a bit smoother, although it's not looking very round. But that's fine, I can fix that after texturing if it really is a problem. Of course, I hope it's not going to be a problem. Right, next step. This awesome overlay shows how distorted the shape is. So, of course, this is a square. A square is the best shape, at least in 3D, I think. Now it's very flat and level, but of course I could do this. Now it's not very square. You can already see the 3D program getting confused. And this overlay basically tells me how not flat, how distorted a face is. Because when you export a model and put it into a game, it will always divide these squares into a triangle. Like this. Right? It just takes from one corner to the opposite corner and makes the face. But it's a bit random which corner it chooses. Like if it goes from here to here or the opposite. And normally that's not a problem. But sometimes it might. Because here, if we have this spike, you can see here the blender chose to triangulate it like this. But maybe we actually wanted to shape to go like this. See the difference? Blender doesn't know that. And the game might decide that, well, maybe you wanted to have it like Blender does it right now. But maybe the game, when we import it into Attila, decides to triangulate it this way. And it's broken again. So that's why on manually distorted, or on very distorted faces, we have to, well, do it manually. Because triangulating, as this process is called, imagine having to do this for like the entire model. It's going to take you a week. So we only tell it, or we only manually triangulate the parts which really need it, which is basically anything orange or worse. Here, for example, I know I want the shape to go like this. I'm just telling the software that it indeed should go like that and not do some other shenanigans. Here's another good example. This yellow-green one. You can see how it's like really distorted. I happen to know the arm should go like this. So I'll tell it to do so. Same goes for this face. And the others are close enough that it shouldn't be a problem. Hopefully. Right. Let's call that step done. Because yes, it's a step. We have an awesome checklist to follow. The checklist is essentially a bit of a manual on how to 3D. Next step after that would be, for example, UV stage. The UV, this thing, is basically this 3D shape cut down the middle here along this red line and then pressed flat into a 2D shape. Because remember, when we load a texture is a 2D image and we somehow have to wrap that 2D image around our 3D model. And that's what the UVs are. And they should be, let's see if I can load up a checkerboard image. Should be good. Let's make a new one. 2048. UV grid. Good stuff. Oh gosh. This might fry my PC. We'll see. Oh. Yes, beautiful. It's going to be a bit blurry because I turned down the texture resolution in Blender just to get some extra performance for the stream. But here you can see how our lovely texture is wrapped all around the model. If we now go back to the UV window, I don't know, randomly decide that this face here in the middle we want to be very big on the UV. See what happens to the model? This means that this small face here is taking up all that space on the texture, so it looks super weird and distorted. This is of course bad. We do not want bad UVs, we want good and even UVs. So I'll just undo this to get back the good UVs I had before. Because UV unwrapping, which is the process of doing the UVs, is not mega fun. It takes a while. And it can also have some very random issues, which are always frustrating. So this is pretty good. You can see that the squares are square shaped, which they should. This means that they are even and not very distorted. Again, I just showed you how distortion could look. Distortion could also... This could also be distortion. See how it gets really funky. Bad. We don't want that. We keep it as is. And that's our sleeves. Hopefully. Of course, with the UVs, by the way, you can see here that they... Like, there's a line here. And that's where the red line on the model goes, the UV seam. So it's on, if you remember on the island, it is this top edge and the bottom edge, because you have to have the seam somewhere. And you'll see the seam on the texture as well later on. I can show you in Substance Painter. So you want to hide it in the least noticeable space, because you need to have it. So if you're making an arm, the underside of the arm is a great option. And if you're making clothing, it's very nice to hide the seams on parts of the model where there would be actual seams, like if this was a real cloth thing. Everything to make a better model. Yeah. I hope that the low poly is good enough now, and that I can go hop back into Substance Painter. Because texturing is what I want to do. Texturing is fun. Low poly is okay. It's nice. It's pretty relaxing. You can listen to a good podcast. But it's not the visually most appealing step. Oh yeah, actually I had to do one more part. Had a little weird issue with the pauldrons. Yep. Which I needed to fix. So let's go do that. These straps aren't quite long enough. Up they go. Looks a little uneven, but it's no big deal. Half of 3D is knowing what you can get away with and what you can't get away with. Like when it comes to the final end result, how things will look. This is not really doing what I wanted to. Come on. Come on. Come on. Yes. Lovely stuff. Oh gosh. Right. I'm now going to delete half the arm, which might appear like a drastic measure, but trust me, it is for the greater good. It is for the greater good. When it's gone. Because there's only so much space on a texture, and remember we have to UV unwrap everything to fit on like one texture, because this entire armor is going to use one texture, and the more stuff you pack on one texture of a fixed size, of course, the like individual space a UV island can take on the picture on the texture goes down, which means that it'll have less pixels available to it, less detail, less real estate. So it's going to look, well, more pixelated, and we don't like that. So what we're instead going to do is that we're going to take one of the arms, and then we're just going to mirror it later on. Like just take it again and flip it. It means that both arms will have the same texture, but that's not really a big deal at all. And you save a lot of space on the texture, which is great. Rightio. Now I need to export some stuff, I believe. Oh no, actually no. I have one more thing to fix. I do indeed have one more thing to fix. Right, we have these shoulder pads. They're cool and all. But I made the low poly for them too simple. It has these like rivets. You can see here, the rivets. And they looked really bad on the texture because the low poly is just flat there, right? It doesn't stick out or anything with the rivets. So it ended up looking rather fancy, or rather not fancy at all. It looked rather bad. So we don't want that, so we'll have to sacrifice a bit of our 3D budget, so to speak, to represent those spikes in 3D, which is not a terribly big deal. Is anyone on Discord running? Nope. Right. How do I best do this? I don't know. We'll see. That did something. Not quite what I was expecting. That also wasn't quite what I was expecting, but let's not worry. The situation is under control. Boom. I'll just add one more strip of one of these down the middle. And yes, Adobe, absolute sarcasm, of course. I don't know, it's ridiculous. But Substance Painter is a pretty good program. So, you know, don't really have a lot of choice. We unfortunately cannot texture in Blender. which is sad, but that's the way it is. And we're gonna work with what we have. And be grateful for it and all that. Right. Oh, God. See? Now the love poly sticks up a bit. Hooray! What a success. Now I just need to do that 3 more times. Yep. That's how it is. That's how it is. And then I'll just delete that pauldron and just duplicate the pauldron I made with the like bolts here, rivets, not bolts. Sorry, they hadn't invented bolts yet, or I don't know. The dwarves. The dwarves maybe. They're always up to something in their halls when they aren't drunk. Oop. And now quick little across. But now we just fill in the blank space. And beautiful. Truly stunning. I'll actually move these in a bit. Something like this. Hope it will be a bit better later on. Okay, we're halfway there. Right, gotta quickly connect the sides up like so. I wonder, could I mirror it down the middle? No, I can't. Not quite symmetrical, I fear. And yes, very true, I cannot play Attila. There's only a 32-bit version. macOS hasn't supported 32-bit software in many years. 5 years or something? I don't remember. Long time ago, since Catalina, which is 10.15, if that interests anyone. Although I do secretly hope that Feral Interactive, which are the guys who do all the Mac ports for all Tolkien War games, do a port for Attila, because they've done a port for Rome 2, which is an older game, which runs and is 64-bit and works perfectly. Rome 2, good stuff, good stuff. So I just have to wait and see if they ever do it. I don't know if they have plans to do it, but I wouldn't mind. But it's not that big of a deal because thankfully Thrones of Britannia, as some of you may know, uses the exact same like texture setup and models and everything. So I can just look at my models in Thrones of Britannia instead of Attila. And if it works in Thrones of Britannia and it looks good in Thrones of Britannia, it'll also look good and work as it should in Attila. So that's pretty good. Otherwise, I don't know. Wouldn't be so fun. Because there's a lot of checking. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong when you put your model like in the game. All sorts of stuff can break. And it's not a terribly fun process. Um, Unfortunately, it is also the last process, and the last thing you do for your model is the most annoying part. But that is the way it is. But when you're done and have solved the last final issue, you can look back at your model and say, damn, that looks good, and be happy. It's great. Although you have suffered a lot up until that point in time. Righty. Oh, how my UVs, did they get cooked? Yup. Look. Looky here. It's not good. We have a little bit of stuff to fix. A little bit. That's no big deal. I hope. Okay. Pauldron is good enough for now. So we can just quickly get rid of the other side. Boop. And it's gone. Slap on a mirror modifier. Boof. Now, I'll apply this because I want these two pauldrons to have different UVs. Because this pauldron, let me just here. These are the high poly pauldrons. You can see this has like a different cut and different details compared to this one. So then they need to have two different UV islands. Because shockingly enough, two parts, two things that should look different cannot exist on the same place of the texture. It does not work. Two separate things cannot exist on the same place. Right. I'll just unwrap it. Boom. There it is. Lovely stuff. Boom. A. Oop. Come on. And let me get rid of this background image. It is horrible. Ah, see? Now I can see way better what's going on. They're weirdly stretched. It's just a Blender quirk. I just have to make sure to scale them down because we're using a rectangular texture. If we were using a square texture, they wouldn't be this weirdly like elongated. So it's actually supposed to be half this wide, like this. Now I, of course, have to make sure that none of this, where's our sleeve low? That none of this overlaps with, well, previous parts of the UV or UVs. Right, so this is the entire UV for the entire model. I know, very funky looking. And now we just need to place these somewhere where they don't overlap with anything else. So these are the front, or the top, I guess I should say. Truly amazing. And now we got to fit these backs, like the downside, the back of them, in somewhere, which is not going to be super easy, as you might see. That's no big deal, because this is the inside. These faces are the inside. And The inside you will almost never ever see in battle at all. So we can, on the UV, once I fix the model a bit, because I forgot to do this, after this, we can scale them down, the UV islands. This means that the inside here will look pretty pixelated, but since you're normally never going to see it, it really doesn't matter all that much. So we should be all good. Beautiful. You don't want to have these too close, because if you have them too close, the textures can start overlapping and you can get like weird, like bleeding. It's called bleeding, texture bleeding. It's basically artifacting, which is not great, and we want to avoid that. I'm seeing right now some very funky UVs down here. That's as it should be. This is not. It's no big deal. Can fix it. Fix it, fix it, fix it. One. Ah. Perfection. Do you have the same stuff going on here? Yep. Right. Yeah. Hands always look rather funky and a bit disgusting on the texture. And this is the inside of the glove. Also, doesn't look the most. It looks a bit like a palm tree almost. Anyway, low poly should I say be fine. Hooray! Let's do a little saving. Always save your work. Because if it crashes and you don't happen to have an autosave, that's it. Then it's over. Then it's pretty over. Right. Let's export our lovely model here. The Stonefoot armor 0 too low is what it shall be called. We want to make sure to triangulate our faces, which is what I talked about earlier, that everything is a triangle. So that we have consistent triangulation between the game engine and Substance Painter, for example. And now I can export it. And this will take not very long, because it's a very small model. Here it's barely 3,000 triangles, nothing. But now we also have to export this thing, also known as high poly. This will take a while, like a good while. And my blender might crash. We'll see. Because I want to delete this collab because I don't need it. I'm gonna hop into edit mode. Okay, we're all fine. We are fine. Let me scoot over here so I can see how like dense it is. Here we go. This is the sleeve. One of these is 1,000,000 triangles. So let's get rid of it. And it's gone. As simple as that. Quick save. And we hop back to object mode. Now we only have one sleeve, just like we wanted. And now we can export the entire high poly. They have very funky colors, and I'm gonna tell you when we start texturing why the colors are this funky. There is a reason for it, trust. Well, let's send it. File export FBX. This might now actually take a while because we're exporting 50 million polygons. It's about half a gigabyte of files. So we'll see how long this takes. And in the meantime, we take a deep breath and mentally prepare ourselves for the struggle ahead. Because they will come. Pardon. It's still exporting. We're still going. And I can't tab out either whilst it's exporting, because then Blender crashes. So that's also great news. We're still going. Come on. It shouldn't take so long. Well, probably because I'm streaming, and then it's going to take extra long time. Because that's just how it works. Which is fine. But it's not the most engaging thing ever. Oh! Nice. Then we're done here. I shall open up Substance Painter, and then I will hopefully also manage the highly advanced maneuver of switching over the stream. To Substance Painter. And no, I cannot show you the Gondor Thief unit redesigns, because no one has started on those yet. No one has started. Remember, we are pretty limited. There's not a whole lot of us. We can only work this fast in our free time, remember? So, it takes a little while. But I can tell you that the Gondor units will be glorious. Just like these dwarves. And hello. Substance Painter is currently loading. I guess I can. What's that? I made 2 of these armor sets. Here's the number 1. Boom. It has male sleeves somewhere here. Somewhere. Yes. Look, it also has male sleeves. This is the other armor set. Actually, also has these. So these are going to be for the same unit, these 2, but well, you get 2 armors to have some more variety, and these sleeves, like the arms here, arm gloves and whatever they're wearing on their arm, can be interchanged. So this arm fits the model I was working on previously and so on. Which is a neat little trick to get some more variation. I'm almost ready with Substance Painter. I have gotten a splash screen. Yes. Right. Let's load up Substance Painter. Yes, yes, good. And let's do a high-tech maneuver. Maybe that worked. We shall see if it did. Yes! Oh, oh, oh. We are now in Substance Painter. This is from a little previous test I did with this armor from an older version of the low poly. Here, could, for example, first of all, it's invisible here. That's not a big deal. But for example, this looked god awful. And this looked god awful. And so did this. Those were the things I tried to fix at the start of the stream. So I'll re-import our mesh, hope that nothing crashes. Which it didn't. That's cool. Right. That's surely not a big deal. It's probably fine. It's not. I know why it's not fine. Ah! I have accidentally assigned two different materials to the sleeve and the rest of the armor, which is bad. Because that means it looks like it is right now. Which is wrong and completely pitch black. Wrong. I'll just export the low poly again with the little fix. Low poly exporting is quick, remember? And now I can re-import the mesh and hopefully it should have fixed itself. It is thinking. Yes. See? We are so back. Now another great time awaits. Baking. So you can see the low poly here. And it's going to load the high poly now, which might also take a while. And then we can bake, aka transfer over, the details from the high poly to the low poly, and we'll see what happens. And hopefully it looks okay. Or probably we're going to find more issues that we didn't find before. I don't need this. Oh, I don't remember what I wanted this set to. Let's go with this. This is probably fine. Super Lego Master. I don't have a GPU. This is a laptop. It's running on a laptop. A laptop which doesn't have a GPU. So, yeah. Integrated graphics all the way. Really shows that you don't need like super mega hardware to do 3D, I guess. Although to be fair, it's a decent chip. Ah, see? Now our high poly has loaded. And yeah, I can change some settings, of course, like, whoa, look at templates. This is the cage, and basically you want to have it as small as you can, because if you have it big, you can get like weird baking artifacts. But you don't want to have it too small either, because then you get stuff like this. You see this little red thing? That means that the high poly is sticking out too much compared to the low poly. So that red part won't be baked and it will leave an artifact. So we need to increase this value until we get blue, only blue. This red there is fine, because the cloth has thickness, the low poly doesn't, that's no big deal. But this, for example, here, more red spots, more bad. So I'm going to increase this distance. And oh, increase it a little more. Now it's gone. And now we hit bake. And this will going to take a while. This is pretty computer intensive, because it does a whole lot of math. Let's see how long it takes. This is the normal map. ID. This is the one which takes really long now. Ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion is a great text. It's a great thing to use, because it's basically fake shadows. Makes the model look a whole lot better. It's like it's great. It's truly great. So it's cooking. I'm going to be cooking for quite a while, so I'll take a short toilet break. Ja. Ja. Und nein. We are, in fact, so back. And the bake is finished. I have impeccable timing. Now press this, the holy button, and hope it looks better. Of course, you can see I've started texturing some parts, like, I don't know, this cloth, but that is very much work in progress. In fact, let me just hide all the materials for a short while. Bop, 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 bop. This one as well, I guess. So this is the model. Here is it without ambient occlusion. This is the model with ambient occlusion. See how much detail those fake shadows add? It's pretty great. Okay, let's get my materials back on. Although, let's only work on the cloth. So we have a bunch of different channels here, which, well, say how the model looks in game later. Diffuse, which is just your base color, which is white for cloth, because I'll show later. Normal shows nothing. What does show something is this normal plus height. Normals basically tell the game, or tell any software really, how light should reflect. This is how I get a kind of 3D effect. You see how, like, I don't know, these pieces in the armor he's wearing look 3D when I move my camera. That's just because of normals, because this screw doesn't exist in the geometry. It's not a thing. It's just the normals. So they're really, really, really useful for faking details. This ornament as well looks 3D as well. But it's completely flat, like from a geometry perspective. But due to the normals, it doesn't look flat, which is great. And the cloth is red because the cloth is tintable, which is like faction coloring. If you've ever played Attila, you know, different factions, different colors, and you can change that color. So, you know, I can pick. It can be whatever I want. Ugly green, for example. This looks awful. The Stonefoot will have like a kind of, I don't know, dark purple-ish color. So that's what I'll preview with. Kind of something like this. Not really, but kind of. Close enough. Let's work with this. Right, tons of channels. Spec level, for example, tells the game how reflective a surface is. And you can see here, cloth isn't reflective, right? If you look at cloth, it absorbs almost all light. Then this spec level should be almost black, yet it isn't. Why? Because there's an error in my materials. Which you want to fix. See? Way better. Way better. I also think this curvature is looking a little bit weird. Way better. Of course, shouldn't have such a strong effect, but still. I'll go have a ton. This is the texture. Texture is just tons and tons of layers. This is just a cloth. A base layer, there are darker spots. You can see them pretty clearly. Brighter spots. Curvature to make like the edges or like things that are stick out a bit brighter. There's the pattern to get like the cloth pattern. Knots. This thing. Yada yada yada. A truly endless amount of things to change and tweak until it all looks good. But you get to look at a pretty model at the same time. And you get to see your model like take shape visually. Which is great. Which is what we want. I gotta fix that. Ugh. See, that's so weird. Like, this black box is, for example, the rivets look way better now. Way better. This black box here is the inside of the pauldron casting a shadow on here, which I actually may not want. Ooh, and here, for example, see this? This means the low poly is not matching the high poly too well. So I need to go to the low poly and add like more vertices on these edges, especially here. Look, really bad, really bad. But it's less of a worry now, I say. And I say it's fine, because I want to texture a bit. But let's just quickly enable my bronze here. Here we go. See, this is a bronze material. I've been using the same bronze material for all Stonefoot. And it looks pretty good. I'm quite happy with it. At the start of texturing, it's usually easier to just block out the colors and then you can tweak the texture, see if they look okay or not, right? This looks funky. We don't want it to look funky. So I'll do a little something. First of all, I need to enable these two options, and then when I paint here, nothing happens. Why? Because I'm dumb. Boom! See? Now it's invisible. Looks a bit bad, of course. It's gonna add a contrast filter. Boom. Right. So now when I paint, see? Area goes transparent. Which is beautiful. So now I'll just trim this. Hey, it's not letting me. Stop resisting. Right. Why is it not letting me paint that? I don't get it. It is resisting. I don't get why. No worry. Sure, it is. Look, I can paint this and paint this, but I can't paint that. What? Substance painter is sometimes a bit. Oh wait, I know why. I know why. Boom. There we go. Accidentally had set the ambient occlusion layer to opacity to 0. So everything the ambient occlusion, or to 1, everything the ambient occlusion was touching was set to be non-transparent, which ambient occlusion shouldn't affect which parts are transparent or not at all. So now just like fill out this area. And there, you see, I accidentally slipped from the. This is easy to fix. I'll just do this. And I set this to multiply. No, not multiply. Crap. No. Here we go. So now I can paint all I want on this, and it doesn't affect the transparency, which is great. It is what we want, so now I can merely, without a worry, paint this opacity. This is like just a small knot which ties the gamson together. It's basically going to be invisible because, you know, a dwarf has like a beard which goes halfway down to his belt. Beautiful. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be good enough. And that is good enough. Mm-hmm. I really needed to save it. Right. That was cool. Now just texture this little piece up there. So just make a new folder, a new texture folder. And now I add color selection. See, I can just pick a color of what I want the mask to affect. And we're of course making the knot up top. So I just select this part. You see, it only affects the knot now. Beautiful. Truly beautiful. And yes, these are Eastern Dwarf. These are Orocarni. This is specifically a tier 2 armor asset. It's pretty cool, if I dare say so myself. I guess if it wasn't cool, I wouldn't be making it. I'll just set up some values. It's going to be string, like, because this knot is made out of string, and string, like, basically any textile, except maybe silk or something, absorbs all light. So it's going to be very non-reflective and not very glossy either. So I need to make sure to represent that in the texture. Thank you. And I made it a little silly, but that's no biggie. Oh crap. Mask. There we go. I don't know what color it should have. Some brown color. Oh. Nice. Nice and disgusting. Beautiful. Beautiful. And now, it just looks a bit bland, doesn't it? It's just color. And we want more than that. I'm going to add another layer, and we're going to give it a mask. That mask will be filled with a generator. And generator, I choose curvature. Right, and let's just change the color of this to be a bit brighter. And you'll see it only affects the like curved parts. It's a bit hard to see because this entire thing is very curved. That's a bad example. Here. I'll have that at a low value. You can see it, how it like highlights and we get a bit more shadows, which is exactly what we want. And it's going to be like ever so slightly more glossy. Ever so slightly. And have an ever so slightly higher specular. Because it's important that you represent all details in all channels. You can't just only tweak, like glossiness, for example. Right. Good stuff. Truly beautiful. It's casting a weird shadow. I'm going to have to fix that. And the top, you see how like it looks super funky. That's something to fix. I fix it when I'm sure my bake is good. And well, I'm sure my bake is not good right now. There's still some issues. This, for example. What? It's weird. But no big deal. I can just manually paint this. Whoop. Fixed. Fixed. Truly beautiful. Righty. Oh, why don't we get cracking on the belt? I have to do a little something which is called pull up a reference image. I know. Crazy stuff. Always looking for references. In this case, of course, concept. Our concepts. Because we don't just model to our heart's content. We do follow concepts. Because they tell us what to do. And that's good. Then we don't have to think as much. Thinking is hard. Right. Now I know the approximate color this thing is supposed to have. So that's cool. Which is a very light brown. And I also saw in the concept that this thing is actually supposed to be dark brown. So I better go change that. Something like this. And then yes, good stuff. Good stuff. Now we can work on the belt. So belt. Add a new folder, new mask with color selection. I'll just select the color of the belt, which is dark green. Boop. And now let's add our first layer. Lovely stuff. Did my music stop playing? It did. Please continue watching. Right. Now I need to decide a bit if this is supposed to be like leather material or not. Because the concept doesn't really clearly show what it is. So I'm going to have to do a quick little Googling. And now I found the reference. And I can say that the kind of color I'm looking for does exist in real life as leather. So I'll try to recreate it. I just need to find what color I'm looking for. And I'm not the best with colors. It's something like this. Right. It's not mega glossy, my reference tells me. So 0.3 shall be a good value. And as for how reflective it is, 0.35 is surely going to be good. And I'll leave this at basically the default value. Specular, by the way, is the color of the reflections. So if you look at the specular channel here, this is specular. Well, gold should of course reflect with like a, or bronze, sorry, should of course reflect with like a goldish sheen. Base done. That's the easy part. And now we can start adding variation. Highly exciting. I'm going to first add a pattern so it looks a bit like leather. Whoop. Didn't do a whole lot, of course, which is not surprising. Here we go. It's doing something. Change how big it is. Make it even bigger. Right, lovely stuff. I'll just invert it as well. Right, so this will go down. So this is like a crevice. And that crevice is going to be a bit less glossy. And of course, like darker diffuse white. And I'm also going to use the height. Clear height. Basically moves the normal map up and down. It looks very bad when set at very high values. But like at a smaller value, like 0.05. You can see that we have a bit of like height indentation. Just to get a tiny bit more of a 3D feel. I make it a bit stronger though. Yes, beautiful. Right, I don't want this to make everything pitch black though. I just want it to be a bit less glossy, a bit darker specular and such that base. I'm just reducing the opacity of the layer basically. And specular as well, same thing. That's like a nice little subtle effect. Cool stuff. That's our lever pattern done. I'll quickly save. Next, I can see that on the reference it has some more saturated orange spots. And I of course want to represent those because this looks kind of boring. It's very plain. It's just one color with a bit of a leather grain thing to it. Not the most exciting thing. I'm going to use like a noise texture, clouds, something. I think this should go well. And then I want to, sorry. Here we go. Yeah. Just to balance a bit. Maybe not this much. Something like this. Good. Orange spots, it shall be named. Don't need to click those channels. Right, so from a diffuse, I can safely say it should be more saturated. But almost there, mute. Getting there, getting there. Although, of course, it looks rather funky with our gloss levels. I'll adjust that soon. Here, this is what a white specular looks like, by the way. This is what maximum gloss and maximum reflectiveness gives you. Looks pretty scuffed. I want to tweak this value so that, well, you start to see the variations, but it doesn't overpower anything, which I think happens at about 15%. Next, specular level. Also low influence, maybe 15. Yeah, 15 was good. And specular as well. Whoop. See, it's all white. Should not. It should be brighter. But not by a lot. You can kind of see the variation. But I want to make the color change more pronounced, so make the color brighter. What does my reference say? We're pretty close. I'll add another one of these layers, which is going to be exactly the same, but going to use a different mask or randomize it a bit more. And this one will use a darker brown. A bit less noticeable. I can see that we've really gotten a bit of color variation in here. Okay, hide those two. See? So we've already gone from this blank color to this. An improvement. Just desaturate the base just a bit more already. Right. Another good thing which you should always add is edge wear, because this thing is getting manhandled around the place. So I just choose the edge wear generator. See, it gives me edge wear, shockingly enough. Now I could say that this is way too much, which I will. I think it is. So I reduce it a bit. And then it's also terribly uniform right now. And it looks like too procedural. So you can do a neat little trick. You just grab a nice cloud texture, give it some acceptable tiling, like this. Then you set it to multiply bending mode. You see how it kind of reduces the effect a bit. Just to make it look a tiny bit less artificial and robotic. Right. Edgeware. Edgeware is very bright. Like this. Although I'll reduce its opacity a bit. Something like this. Good. And the edges have also like roughed up and everything, so it's not going to be so glossy. So we need to make sure to not, well, we need to make sure to make it less glossy. It's as simple as that. Right, glossiness. 20% opacity, more 40, more 50. Specular level. 30 should be good. Nope, more 40. Same goes for specular again. So it's very matte and it basically reflects all light. No, sorry, it absorbs all light. All light, that's the point. That's the point of it. Right. I think I'll make the base a bit darker again. Well, a bit bright. Something like that is closer to concept. This looks pretty cool. Now, one thing to add, for example, is that these gold things, these gold details on the belt, they just, well, it looks like they just magically stick out. Which, it just doesn't look very real at all. So I want to make it like be darker, the lever be darker around these golden bits. Like so. So I'm going to select them. Then I'm going to do what's a bevel. Then I can use a bevel filter. It's truly glorious. See? That goes all around here. And it's beautiful. I'll make it a bit less strong. Right. Same thing as always, less glossy, less specular, level and darker specular. Simple, simple. Party. Oh, let's see it. Whoa. diffuse. Plus. Yes, that is good. This is less good. And back to specular. Specular. Darker. Right? So it looks it's a bit better. But one thing I'd also do now is add a height. Just look, this is extreme, but you can see how it's like kind of inset now. And I kind of want that effect, but well, a lot more subtle. Right. Truly glorious. Truly glorious looking. I shall edit the bevel to be less strong. Go out less. A bit more of this going on. And then I'll add another filter, which is called warp. Yes. So what warp basically does, it just distorts the edges a bit, or distorts it somewhat, just so it looks less uniform. Just increase the diffuse, like the effect it has on the other layers a bit, just to be a bit more noticeable. Oh, truly beautiful. This is unfortunate here, because it's like, it has 1 pixel offset. Right, good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. Although I still feel that the edge wear is too uniform. If you zoom out, because you always gotta see how your texture looks from a distance. How this would actually look from a distance? Well, I can clearly see 2 bright lines going across the top and bottom of the lever. I'm not the biggest fan of that. So that needs changing. So back into belts, edge, layer, cloud, multiply texture. I will increase its tiling. Yes, and then I will, yep. I can pretty clearly see how it like, well, how it affects things. Way better, way better. Right, chainmail. Chainmail, chainmail, chainmail. Whoop. Here's our chainmail. It looks decent, I guess, but also a bit sauce. It looks strangely soft. I'm not quite certain why. but I'm sure I'll find out soon enough. Just look a bit sus, but that's okay. I'll add a sharpen. I have a little magic material here. Ah, yes. It is truly beautiful. It's called sharpen. That's what it does. Just sharpens everything up a bit. This is a bit of a sneaky way to combat the well, the fact that Total War Attila doesn't allow or doesn't use very high resolution textures. Technically, it allows. I mean, you could use a very high resolution texture, but the performance is going to be absolutely abhorrent. So, you know. Yeah, I need to. I have an idea. Just need to move this way out. Boom. Just remove mask. Right. That should work significantly better. It should. Apparently it doesn't. Why? No one knows. To make that the base black diffuse. Doesn't change anything. Why does it not change? Cloth has nothing to do with it. Steel bright does. Because it masks is funky, right? Yes. Very funky mask. Oh yes. Way better. Way better. Right. Now I can add a little bevel filter. Yes. Truly beautiful stuff. Still looks a bit weird, but there's a limited amount of things you can do against that with well, with the tools I guess I have available to me. Yes, now everything else is pitch black because the base layer is pitch black. Righty-o. The pauldron looks fine. Looks absolutely fine. Does in fact not. Wait. Sorry. Wait, what? Ah, there we go. Now it looks fine. Because there's a brighter steel like on the rim and a bit of a darker steel in the middle. Looks a bit cooler. You might recognize this pattern from the Stonefoot heavy pipes, which I've also made. In fact, we don't want it to bleed out there. Glorious stuff. Truly glorious. Let's quickly grab a material I've made beforehand. I've prepared some materials, or materials I've used for previous projects, which I'm reusing and adjusting. Because you should not just reuse a material, you must be certain it works. It might not work just slapping it on a model. There's no guarantee it does that. Here, for example, you can see it looks rather interesting, but not particularly great. I'd say the sharpen is too strong, because look, it starts looking really bad at high sharpening levels. So you want to keep it pretty subtle. Boom. Good enough. Right. Our gambeson. Not looking so hot. It is an absolute chunker of a material. First thing I'll do, hide the stitches. And then I'll hide the dents, the stitch is called. And I'll hide these. And I'll hide these. And this layer I'll keep. This layer is just a darker. Right. So now we need to start adjusting this to fit. Look at what an absolute unit of a texture. Right. Base color. Looking at our reference, I see that what we have right now is pretty close. I just make it a smidge darker. Boom. Done. That's our base color. Everything else like this, probably fine. Curvature, probably fine. Inverse curvature, also probably fine. Edgeware. Edgeware usually doesn't look too good on cloth, so I'll hide it. In fact, I'll yeet it in the bin. Height, this is important. This is what gives us that tiny bit. I just need to. Right. Gives us a bit of that rough cloth feeling. Because gambeson is pretty, well, just rough cloth. And I make this less strong. Right. Darker is just darker spots. However, I just need to make sure its tiling is good and square first and foremost, because we're using a rectangular texture, and if I use tiling 1-1 in this case, so it gets repeated once on the y-axis and once on the x-axis, it's going to be stretched. I need to make sure it's repeated twice on the x-axis, so I need to change the tiling of everything manually, sadly, which is a bit of a hassle. Which is truly a bit of a hassle. Right, we of course have stitches. Let's worry about this later. QB border is great. Basically just makes everything darker around the borders. Simple. Yet effective. Yet effective. Glorious. Right, we have these more random color layers, which are great. Because they're here to add variation. Hooray! I know, we all love variation. And I don't think I need this, so I'll just kill it. That's right, I have a position generator, which basically just makes things darker near the bottom. Again, it's very subtle, but it's nevertheless a nice effect. Nevertheless, a nice effect. We have a dirt layer, which doesn't appear to do anything. Right, these are going to set up those later. This will be very useful though. Yeah, now, for check with reference tells me I do need it to be tiny bit darker. Something like this is rather close to reference. I'm not the biggest fan of the belt, I'll be honest. I think it looks a bit weird, but I'll fix that later. It's no big deal. No big deal. Hopefully, at least. Oh, there we go. I don't want to do the stitches yet, because that's a lot of hand painting, because you have to go around all the places where there should be stitches and manually hand paint stitches. No, thank you. At least not now. At least not now. So I guess I'll fix the belt then. So, whoop. Hop back to the belt. And let's see here. This is This is a lot closer to reference, also looks nicer. It's not as bright, it doesn't stand out like as much, which is good. Which is very good, in fact. Twas looking a little sus. I'll make sure to get that fixed. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good start now that I have managed to get here. There's still a lot of work left. I'm going to have to go back and remodel a few pieces and fix some issues. Like this has to be fixed. This artifact in the armpit. It's not hard, it's just not super mega fun to do. Important things, of course, is this stuff isn't even textured yet, and so on, which it of course should. And I need to figure out while the mail is looking a bit weird. I think I know why, but I need to confirm that. Basically, there's a base layer under the mail, and I think that's too close, so it's kind of clipping. You can see here, the base layer of the rings was too close, or like the backing layer of the mail was too close to like started clipping through, so these don't go all the way, whilst they should go all the way. This is also, of course, it's fixing. You can see that the leather strap which should go here is clipping through the chainmail. Also shouldn't do that. But it's pretty good. Pretty good. Going to be a few more hours before this asset gets finished. The one thing I will do right now is the cloth. It should be darker towards the bottom. And I want that. I want such a feature. So I'll add it. Not super hard. Boom. A generator, a position generator. See, working beautifully. Boom. I don't want it to be mega noticeable, but I want it to be there. Yes, that is perfect. Very, very cool. This will be a great unit. Together with the... Well, this I also need to fix. The arm's looking a bit sus. These two parts should move out a bit. It's looking pretty good. It's going to be a cool unit. It's going to be a super cool faction. It's my first, like, full faction, which I get to work on. It's not only me doing this faction, of course, but it's the first faction as well I get to, you could say, direct as a lead unit artist. And I've done a lot of work on the Orocarni. So I want them to look good, real good. And it's a very nice warm-up for me to start with a bit more simpler faction like Orocarni. Because dwarves are actually one of the more easier things to do. And yes, I'm pretty tired. So I think this is where I shall leave it at for this time. I hope the 20 or so people that watched this had fun. I had fun. A stream is a good motivation to do some work yourself. I have been slacking a bit recently. And I hope everyone has fun with the campaign once that eventually comes out. And you'll be sure I'll still be doing 3D forever, seemingly. It is my destiny, one may say. It is my destiny. Right, I'll save this. And I'll click the big and scary button, which is called end stream. I'll thank everyone again. And bye-bye, everyone.